Hello and good morning. Thursday, March 16th, 2023. It's March Madness. It's here. It's all happening. Some folks might say that there were a couple games. It's already started. No, it hasn't. We're not talking about 98-point Arizona State on this podcast. We're not doing that. Will can't have it. Will Warren, how are you?
I'm terrible because I just picked Arizona State to the round of 32.
Did you really?
I'm afraid I have. But no, I'm really good. It is kind of like Christmas
music.
morning a little bit, right? You know, for us freaks, it's a little bit like Christmas morning.
That's true. That is true. It's going to be good. I was looking at the times today, and I was like, this is actually good. Now, look, am I quite annoyed at Tennessee playing at 9:40? Yes. But throughout the rest of the day, a lot of good games. And they're scattered. So that's good. Like Duke, Oral Roberts is going to be a nice prelude to Tennessee. Like, it's fine. I'm okay with the schedule.
This Thursday is kind of an interesting one because when I did the preview for the Substack, and none of the I would say there's like two upset opportunities where I'm like, okay, I think that has a real shot of happening, maybe three. And then you look at Friday and it's like, oh God, there could be like 5 bangers on this one. So Thursday really has the higher quality games, in my opinion. Like starting off with West Virginia, Maryland is fabulous. That's just like old school bully ball, going to be a delight to watch. And really doesn't let up at all throughout the day. It's pretty consistent. You know, going to have at least 2 good games on at a given time. Tomorrow on paper looks less interesting, but there's a lot more upset potential. So it's one of those. It's kind of like how people, big NFL guys, will watch. It's like week 11, and there's like no good games on the schedule. Like, oh, wait for it. This is all the good games come, and then that does actually happen. So I feel like that's what we're in store for those first couple days.
I'm excited. I am excited. We have a lot to get to. Let's do quickly the Vols. A lot of folks want to get your perspective on Tennessee coming into the Louisiana matchup tonight. We know officially it's Louisiana. When I saw that draw, I immediately texted you and was like, uh-oh. Because that was like the team where you're like, who matches up the best with Tennessee? Probably Louisiana. And I was like, but then you look at the line, opens at 11. I'm okay. Am I right to be okay about Louisiana today?
Yeah, and I probably should apologize for putting that out into the world.
You did this to me, Will.
Well, it's kind of like looking at the 4 factors on, Ken's site, looking at some of the teams that Tennessee struggled with, and my first thought was, well, Tennessee struggled with teams with this sort of profile. And then you actually go and watch their film and watch a couple of their games, get invested in like who else have they played that's of somewhat similar quality. Because obviously, being in the Sun Belt, you're not going to play like Arkansas every week. The two things that pop up are, number one, lost by 28 to Texas, which is sort of a big deal when Tennessee beat Texas. Number 2, they run an old school, and it's funny to say this as a Tennessee viewer, old school offense, 4 out, 1 post in that never, and really it's 2 post in that never, leave the paint. And Tennessee has really handled offenses like that basically all season long. Post first teams have not really had much success against UT, I would say. Like, you could point to Liam Robbins having some good runs against Tennessee, but Vandy had a bunch of shooters around him. Lafayette really doesn't attempt many threes. They have one of the lowest 3-point attempt rates in the field. So,
which is weird too that the 3-point stuff would plague Tennessee, because I think their teams are shooting 26% from deep against Tennessee on the year. I was going through Hoop Math stuff where I'm like, that's weird. Why am I so terrified of 3-point shooting teams when Tennessee is ostensibly good?
Well, it's just the single game variance. Like, anything can happen in a one-off situation. And so that's why you look at like Giant Killers in ESPN or Bracket Breakers on The Athletic, the OGs of the Giant Killer game, by the way. They have, everybody's pointing out the same thing, which is that, to beat a higher seeded opponent, you need to include like some amount of variance in your game, whether it's like forcing a lot of turnovers, owning the boards, taking a lot of threes, slowing the game down, whatever it may be. And Lafayette really doesn't do any of that. This kind of feels like drawing Longwood again. And so, I mean, at the risk of looking like a huge idiot in, 24 hours, I do think Tennessee's going to be fine in this first round game. It's just not like on paper, of course, a very good matchup for the Dog. The rest of the weekend's more interesting, where you've got, you basically have the Tennessee play-in game of sorts of Duke Oral Roberts at 7 tonight. And when that got announced, Sean Paul, who's a writer I respect, not just the writer of the song Temperature, he noted that he didn't really like that matchup for ORU. And then the more I dove in, I was kind of like, well, I kind of actually do. Duke does not shut down ball screens very well, which is all of what Oral Roberts does. They have struggled with teams that can shoot it, like Miami. Oral Roberts reminds me a lot of like mid-major Miami. And Duke did not look good against them this year. So I think there's a real chance Tennessee, if they were to advance to the round of 32, would play Oral Roberts instead, which is kind of interesting to say. And I think people are sort of overhyping the Duke thing because they got hot late. But, we've done research to show the two most important months of the season for tournament performance are November and December, which is not when Duke was playing their best basketball. So
a lot of guys out, though, at that time.
A lot of guys out for sure. But people need just to look back at Tennessee last year. I hate to bring it up, but everybody, Tennessee was basically the hottest team in the field, more or less, going into last season's tournament. And what did it do for you? A bunch of nothing. Yeah. So, you could make the same argument about Duke. You could do about Texas A&M. I caution overhyping the hot teams for sure. Unless they're like a 1 or a 2 seed, and then it's just like, well, they've been good all year.
I was going to say, that's not hot. They're just good all year. Yeah. All the 1 seeds are not hot at the moment. They're just really good basketball teams. That's not a thing.
But I would say my expectation, minimum expectation really, Tennessee should make the Sweet 16 with this draw. You're going to have, the Oral Roberts matchup is the only one of the possible 3 that actually gives me some pause, because Tennessee more or less, not exactly, of course, but more or less played something like this with Missouri, though obviously Connor Vanover is a lot taller than Kobe Brown. And it hasn't gone well when they've played systems like that. So I could see Oral Roberts exploiting them a little bit. With that being said, like I obviously mentioned, they match up well with Louisiana. I think they match up quite well with Duke on paper, actually, because Duke does not shoot the ball well. They struggle with turnovers a lot. Their guards have had a big problem with ball pressure this year, so which feeds right into like the Jemai Meshack, Josiah Jordan James, Santiago Vescovi game. So I think Tennessee should make the Sweet 16 at minimum, and beyond that, it gets quite favorable. But I know better than to be super optimistic about a Tennessee program in the postseason. So I am holding back.
That's fair. Sweet 16 is, I think most fans, even with after as a guy, I think they're okay. I think most fans just want to get out of the opening weekend. I think that's the main goal here. The most interesting player for you in the tournament is who?
There's 2 ways you could go here. Number 1 is obviously Branon Miller, because obviously, everything off the court is huge, of course, but when he's on the court, he is arguably the best player in America. Aside, you could say like the Zach Edey thing, but we've seen big posts not really work out in March before, so I wouldn't be surprised to, and people were really hard on fading Purdue, so I wouldn't be surprised to see that end poorly. But beyond Miller, and the safer pick here is Marcus Sasser. We're all sort of waiting to hear how bad his groin strain is that he picked up, I believe, in the either semifinals or finals of the AAC tournament. I cannot remember which game. But, he slipped on the floor, looked bad at first. He actually warmed up and said he was okay to go against Memphis, but they held him out for safety purposes. I think if he plays, Houston is legitimately the very best team in America. When he doesn't play, they're going to be more open to variance, more open to, some defensive struggles, and they're not going to have as great of a time offensively. So his strength and the percentage that he can play at matters a lot to Houston's success.
The Houston stuff is too clean. I can't do it. I can't do Jim Nantz in Houston for the Final Four. Houston winning it. It's just too much. I can't do it. That just is too much of a storybook ending.
I'm all in. Houston, and then on the other side it'll be, I could not tell you who's coming out of the west side of the bracket, but we'll say Arizona, for example. Could be a great game.
Who was it who pointed out like teams who opened the year, what was it, preseason unranked, and just how bad?
Ken Pomeroy. So one seed, we'll read this stat off really quick. 1 seeds and 2 seeds that enter the season outside of the AP Top 25, if I'm recalling correctly, 0 for 36 in making the Final Four. And this year that includes Purdue and Marquette. I don't think you have to tell people to bet against Purdue. I think they're doing that themselves pretty well. But, Marquette has picked up a ton of buzz lately as this white-hot team out of the Big East. And I like Marquette. I love watching them. They're a delight. They don't rebound for crap, and their defense is not very good. So I would be plenty shocked to see that survive for 4 games, to be honest. So, I mean, I think it's reasonable. And then you flip that. The teams that started off in the preseason AP Top 25, or even the Top 10, really, who've sort of struggled on the back end of the year. So that includes like a Kentucky. That includes a Tennessee. That includes, like probably a Memphis even. I think Memphis were preseason ranked. Arkansas. So teams like that have, not had the best of seasons, but they were ranked up highly in the first place because they had the talent on the roster. Always interesting to watch those unfold.
The best first round matchup is what?
That's a tough one. I am a personal big fan of West Virginia, Maryland today, the very first game of the tournament. It is. It's not recommended if you don't like wrestling, and not like WWE, but like college wrestling, like watching Carl Sanderson just destroy a guy on the floor. That is West Virginia, Maryland.
Who's Carl Sanderson?
Huh?
Who's Carl Sanderson?
He was this amazing Iowa wrestler back in that. He went undefeated in college. Greatest wrestler of all time.
Did you wrestle in high school, Will?
I did not. You look at this body. You think I can wrestle anyone? Of course
I don't know. You're like you're all in on wrestling.
I loved it when I was younger, and they were. I think ESPN did this thing where, like, if there was a history, they don't really do this anymore, of course, because they don't care. But if there was like a historical thing coming up, they would like promote the heck out of it and run it all the time. And I know it's funny to say this after like the Aaron Judge deal, but I remember them running a ton of like wrestling stuff on TV when Carl Sanderson was about to make it out of college undefeated. Or Cale Sanderson, sorry.
Cale Sanderson.
Cale. He was Iowa State, not Iowa.
Okay.
So it was close, but either way. Back to what we're ostensibly talking about here. So West Virginia, Maryland lines up really well today. I think people are going to be wise to settle in for a pair of other games. Utah State, Missouri at 140. That's 2 all offense, no defense teams. Utah State can play a little defense. Like they've got a good interior grouping that keeps you out of the paint. But it's Missouri, man. We've watched them do this thing all year. They don't care. They'll shoot. They'll do their thing no matter who they're playing. And Utah State, just a delight to watch. 5th in three-point percentage in the nation, taking on a Missouri team that allows more three-point attempts than all but one other team in the field. So I think that could be an absolute flamethrower of a game.
Go Aggies. I'm all in on the Aggies today.
Yeah,
Mizzou going down, and I think I'm rooting harder against Mizzou than any team in the round of 64.
Well, I have a team in Alabama to top you there, but
Alabama. I guess it's just more of like I'm not expecting Alabama to lose early, yeah. So it's like the one who I think can actually lose an opening weekend. It's Mizzou. Out of here.
Oh yeah, get them out. I've been annoyed by their.
I'm not still mad
league.
about Tennessee, Mizzou from multiple instances. No, get them out.
Okay, one other today, and then I'm going to add a couple tomorrow because I'm just in overload right now. Oral Roberts, Duke. That's a game where both offenses match up really well with the opposing defense. Like Oral Roberts can really exploit what Duke doesn't do well, and Duke can exploit the fact Oral Roberts, aside from Vanover, has no real size and can't rebound. So I'm fascinated to see who comes out on top there. Tomorrow, a couple that I think people should tune in for: Florida Atlantic at Memphis, late night game, an 8-9. Memphis is getting a lot of hype as this potential, Sweet 16 team based on their potential draw with Purdue. Could go pretty far, of course, but I caution people against betting against FAU. FAU has beaten the odds all year long. One of the very best teams against the metric spread in the whole field. Love watching FAU. Beyond that, I find myself fascinated by Drake versus Miami, which is also a later game on Friday. I've got Drake, personally. I just think they're better. Miami's other thing that we're waiting for is for their center's health availability, because he twisted his ankle real bad in the ACC tournament. When he is off the floor, an already not good defense turns into like arguably the very worst defense in the field, which is shocking when you have 15 and 16 seeds to discuss. So his availability to play at all is important. The last thing I read late last night from Jim Larinaga was that he cannot run or jump, or is not cleared to run or jump yet, which when you're playing basketball seems like an important thing to be able to do. So, I mean, if he can't play, you should tune in and watch Drake at minimum. Really fun team.
I think you tweeted, like, the record cannot be good of teams who release those kind of hype videos.
No. What are they doing? Okay, so for people who are a very visual podcast, people who aren't watching, Miami released this video that was just titled "Don't Pick Us," and it's all of like the players being like, we were picked 4th in the ACC, we won the ACC, over and over, usual stuff. Tennessee made this exact same video in 2018 and then proceeded to lose to Loyola Chicago in deeply harrowing fashion. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's stupid. You're not gonna be happy. The only thing that can come of this is bad, always, because if you lose, the very first thing people are gonna do is screenshot that video and post "Don't pick us" in the replies.
Do you remember Mizzou did something similar a couple of years ago on the prowl ahead of the Tennessee game and proceeded to get thrashed by Tennessee? It was like on the prowl. Like, what are we doing?
Yes.
I think was it in Knoxville? I don't know. It was something in the mountains, like the tigers are prowling around. I gotta send you this video. Was
it the football one from this past year?
No, it wasn't this year. I feel like it was 2020. Mizzou on the prowl. I'll find it.
It's coming back a little bit.
Like the player is literally like like it's just weird, and it did not go well. Feel better about this team's path after seeing what their draw was. Who like you were kind of skeptical coming into the tournament, but like after seeing what the path is to them making a deep run, you feel better about their chances.
You want to know who I think got just like the most gift wrap draw imaginable of like a top 4 seed? Xavier. I am very low on Xavier as a team. I challenge them to play one defensive possession in March. I'm excited to see them do it. They can score like crazy, but they cannot play defense. They don't force turnovers. They don't block shots. They don't do much of anything well defensively except not foul, which to me just shows you don't play defense.
Is Jordan Crawford coaching this team now?
I wish. And obviously, like, them not having Zach Fremantle could play a negative role. But, I mean, he's been out for 12 games now, and they're more or less fine without him. I mean, like, they beat Providence twice. They beat Creighton and, nearly beat Marquette on the road without Fremantle. So I'm not too worried about that aspect. But this is really about, like, the draw to me. So you get Kennesaw State, who is... if not the worst 14 seed in the field, the second worst. And I feel bad because I really would like for Kennesaw State to do a big thing. But it's not a great matchup when it's, a KSU team that doesn't really force extra turnovers or extra possessions much, facing off against a Xavier defense that owns the boards, and a Kennesaw State team that's bled a lot of points from the three-point line this year against, number 3 3-point shooting team in America. And then beyond that, Xavier either plays Iowa State or the first 4 winner, which is Pitt. Don't know about you. Don't have any interest in seeing Iowa State's offense play another possession this season. And they just lost Caleb Grill, which is a huge deal. So it's either Caleb Grill-less Iowa State or Pittsburgh, who does not rated very favorably by the metrics, though it's achieved quite nicely all year long anyway. If Xavier cannot make the Sweet 16 with this draw, I don't know what to say, because it is one of the easiest draws I've ever seen for a 3 seed compared to expectations.
It's the Sean Miller redemption story that we've all been waiting for.
I know everybody really wants it. Name redacted has really been pushing it.
Who do you have the most doubts about going deep that you were kind of in on having a deep run, and then you saw their draw and you're like, ooh, I don't think they have a deep run in them anymore?
I don't know about a deep run necessarily, but Kansas really got screwed with this draw. Horrible luck for them. So first off, not only not getting the Midwest region that Houston got, which it was pretty shocking in real time and has only kind of grown more surprising as we've surpassed it. Like, Houston's a better team than Kansas, full stop. But
was it a Bill Self thing?
Maybe, but for Kansas to not get the Kansas City regionals, kind of shocking. Given the respect they generally get from the committee, right? But it's not just that. You draw either Arkansas, who is finally mostly healthy, has Nick Smith, who will be the best player in the game, or at least the most talented. You got way more lottery picks on Arkansas's roster than you do Kansas. Say you make it out of that, tough stuff. You got to play top 5 metrics team UConn in the Sweet 16. You somehow make it out of that. You either got to play Gonzaga or UCLA, top 5 metrics teams in the Elite Eight. It is arguably the worst draw I've ever seen for a 1 seed, aside from maybe 2014 Wichita, when they got that 8 seed Kentucky team in the round of 32, and you're just like, oh, this is where it ends. Kansas kind of got that draw this year, and I really feel for them.
Well, it was always going to be hard to go back-to-back.
Yeah. If I honestly will say this, if they make the Elite Eight, that is an overachievement, significant overachievement. You should be proud of that at that point, because you've beaten a top 20 team followed by a top 5 team.
I like it. Final Four prediction, and then we'll wrap up with some quick hires, which has been pretty. We've gotten a lot really quickly and some big rumors, but your official Final Four prediction coming into tournament Palooza here, Will Warren.
So I do two. I do one that's bracket pool stuff for family where I'm trying to win, and then one where it's I could definitely see this happening. So we'll kind of go with the mix here.
No. Let's do the one that you think's happening. We don't need to do the family pool. You can keep that
screw the family pool. So I have been stuck on the South region for days because I've been on record as I don't trust Alabama's turnovers in the tournament. I think somebody's going to exploit that. A potential round of 32 matchup with West Virginia is real bad for that. Given all the times we've watched West Virginia do this exact thing to opponents where they just force 500 turnovers in a game. You're like, oh, I can't get off a shot. I'm going to go Arizona over San Diego State in the South. I really wanted to take San Diego State to the Final Four because they're an amazing value out there. You can essentially outplay your entire bracket pool if you take San Diego State to the Final Four. Amazing value there. But I just think Arizona's got the better roster, and I cannot totally trust Utah State to take them down in the second round. So I go Arizona in the South. Midwest Regional, very easy for me. Houston over Texas. I don't have much doubt there. The only doubt I have is Texas actually making it to there. You can make the argument for a Xavier run, or say A&M continues their hot streak. It could be Houston A&M in the Elite Eight. But either way, Houston got, not a gift draw because you might have to play Auburn in the round of 32 at home, basically. But, beyond that, you either have a very weak 5 or a very weak 4 or potentially Drake or Kent State in your Sweet 16. So I love their path. I think they're going to take full advantage. West, I have
quick question. Auburn, Houston would be in Birmingham, right?
Yeah, which is not a true home game, but it's 2 hours from Auburn versus however many hours that is from Houston.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is ridiculous. Truly ridiculous. By the way, Iowa's beating Auburn in the first round. I've waited for 3 months to pick against Auburn in the NCAA tournament. I've watched their games, and you can just see it written in the stars. Wendell Green lofting up a 35-footer that hits Bertha in the 5th row. It's just so easy to picture. West region, I wanted to go UCLA because I think they're undervalued, but the Jalen Clark injury really puts a damper on that for me. I think I'm going to go UConn out of the West over Gonzaga. But it would be pretty funny if this is the Gonzaga team to finally do it out of all of them. The one with the worst defense since Adam Morrison. So I don't know. I won't be shocked by much of anything. East, I'm really putting myself in a bind here. I have an Elite Eight of Tennessee and Michigan State. I do not trust Marquette. I think Kentucky they just do not seem March ready. The Vanderbilt loss gave me a lot of pause, and it's hard to bet against Izzo in March, really. This is a real dangerous game I'm playing, but I am going to take Tennessee to the Final Four as nothing more than a massive value play. I mean, you can get Tennessee. The odds that Tennessee has to make it to the Final Four versus what ESPN, CBS, etc. users are picking at, you can get like 4 times the bracket value that you should. It's astounding. They're well worth a try. And especially if you're like a huge pool.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I've got Houston over Arizona in the final. I know it's a little bit too perfect for words, but I don't trust Alabama. UCLA would have been my other pick had Jalen Clark stayed healthy. Houston simply makes the most sense because on nights when they're not shooting well, they offer the amount of just massive amounts of rebounding, massive amounts of turnovers forced to overcome it. They're, no matter who they take the floor against, basically always going to have a huge shot volume edge against. And I think that's going to matter in a year where there's no elite teams. There's no obvious, kryptonite for Houston's thing they do. So I think they're my pick to win it all.
You want to get mine?
I would love to hear your Final Four.
I think Alabama makes it in the South. I hate this. I think Alabama makes it in the South. I think Miami makes it in the Midwest.
Ugh.
Midwest is the most mercurial to me. I know it's not going to be Houston, and I don't believe in Xavier to be able to make it through. I don't believe in Texas at all.
See, that's how I feel about the entire left half of the bracket.
Interesting. You could also sell me on Auburn making it through.
That would be very funny.
You could sell me on Auburn making it through. Because I think Auburn, with a home game against Houston, would not surprise me if that's where Houston goes down in a slot fest against Auburn. That would not surprise me in the least bit. In the West, I've got UConn making the Final Four. In the East, I've got Kentucky.
That's a very reasonable pick, I think.
Yeah.
It's a great value again.
Then you get Kentucky, Bama in the Final Four on that side. I think Bama wins that one. And then I think you get where to go? I'm looking at my right. Where to go?
You're
Miami and UConn. I was like, where did Miami go?
So,
Miami and UConn. I think UConn wins. And then I think UConn beats Alabama in the national championship. I think UConn wins the national title.
That'd be your first 4-seed champion since 1997 Arizona, if it were to happen. Which, I mean, in this year of all years, feels fairly realistic, to be honest.
I just feel like they're gonna the most complete. I like them. I like their early season. They were undefeated for a while. I don't know. The stat about UConn when they have that kind of start, they only win national titles. I can't shake it, Will. I can't shake that feeling that it's just they're going to take advantage of a weak overall top tier year, and UConn just runs the gauntlet and wins it quietly.
I would like to get a couple bonus predictions on the books.
Yeah.
All right, so, and these are just quick fire. Number one, does a 15 or 16 seed win a game?
Yes.
I think I agree. And
I don't think a 16 does. Like, I don't think UNC Asheville gets it. I don't think Vermont, but Vermont over Marquette is like spicy. Princeton stinks. They're not beating Arizona. Colgate, I don't think's beating Texas, although
it's plausible. The one with the easiest path to envision is Vermont.
Yeah.
So I could see that. I think it's at least worth a shot. So John Fendler on Twitter posted not like a betting guy, but the odds of like, the books have it at like plus 190 and he measured it at plus 130. So there is like real value there in picking like just any of the 15 or 16 seeds to win, especially this year. So yeah, I agree with you. I think there's going to be one somewhere that pulls it off. It's going to be hard to tell who. It would be extraordinarily funny if it were Howard or Texas A&M Corpus Christi.
Yeah,
but I
just don't see it. Yeah.
Let me think of another one. How many 1 and 2 seeds go down before the Sweet 16? Out of 8.
6.
Oh, you mean go on to the Sweet 16?
Yes.
Okay.
I think 6 go on.
I'm gonna say 5.
Okay.
I think you're gonna lose a 1 seed somewhere. Obviously, Kansas is kind of the peak guess, but I would not sleep on the potential West Virginia-Alabama matchup or
Auburn-Houston.
Auburn-Houston, but the Memphis FAU winner versus Purdue is quite intriguing. I don't think I would pick it on its face, but it's one of those where you see the matchup and you're like, well, I can envision that. Like, that's plausible. And, I don't think people have really said this much. I like FAU more against Purdue than I do Memphis. The fact that Memphis cannot rebound a basketball on defense, kind of a problem when Zach Edey's on the other team. So, you're hearing that more and more that you have to, what is it that Torian Prince said that one time? There's like when the ball comes off the board and you grab with 2 hands, that's a rebound.
Yeah.
Somebody tell that to Penny Hardaway. Just got to get that on the books. The 2 seeds, though. You can easily see Marquette losing to one of MSU or USC, right? I don't think UCLA is going to be in serious trouble against the Northwestern Boise winner. It just doesn't seem like that matchup's really going to exploit it. But Texas got a little bit of trouble, and then you can see where Arizona might drop it to Utah State. It's harder to imagine, but it's plausible. But yeah, you can see at least 2 or 3 going down this first weekend. I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised by the amount of chaos that happens, honestly more in the round of 32 than the round of 64.
That's fair. All right, well, that was our March Madness preview. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun day.
I think this is, and I've done we've talked about the research I've done on here. This has the chance to be one of like the 3 to 5 craziest tournaments ever. On the books. I mean, it makes a lot of sense as one that, is historically nuts, which I'm excited about. I love when things go, bonkers like that. So I don't know. You can see it. Like, you can definitely see it coming. It would be very funny if this was just chalk all the way. My father-in-law was like, what's the argument against me doing chalk for my bracket last night at dinner? And I was like, well, I actually can't argue against that in a 4-person pool. But no, I really think this is going to be quite the fun tournament. I think it's going to be a deal where you get like one seed in the Final Four and then a bunch of like, how the heck did they end up here? So
yeah,
it feels a lot like feels a ton like when the championship game was Louisville, Michigan.
Yeah. Also, I'm not a bracket person. My wife's making me do a bracket.
I filled mine out in 5 minutes and I've forgotten who I picked. I invested, I will say this year is the first year I've ever done this. I bought into a survivor pool, which I find a much more interesting way to watch the games than like the old Trill Ballins me. Well, there goes my bracket. I hate that. Yeah. Because I used to be that guy, but now I am not. But the survivor pool I bought into, you pick like one team a day to win. You can't pick them ever again after they win. But
this would be your hell if you were in an office setting, Will, where everyone they're like, Will, what do you think? How's your bracket, Will?
It used to be like that, and thankfully it's not anymore. The only 2 years that I'm recalling that were like that, it was like one of them, Loyola Chicago beat UT, so no one wanted to talk about the bracket that next week, which was nice. And then the other one was UT Purdue, and everybody was in a good mood, so that was fine.
Yeah.
But
Hopefully we get a game like that, though. I mean, cardiac stuff, but I mean, that'd be fun. I would love a back and forth with little Carson Edwards 2.0. I don't know.
I would like for a team to drag Tennessee into a 3-point shooting competition.
Yeah.
And not like the evil way of like, oh, ho, ho, here goes Tennessee, 5 for 25 from 3 again. Like, Tennessee's hitting 10 plus threes and the other team is hitting as well. Like,
that means someone's not creating, though. I don't know who that means. It means Meshack's having a good game. Like, the only way I think
it means like Vescovi's hit 6 or something.
But like Vescovi, I don't know if you looked, but like he's 75% of his threes are assisted. Like, just someone has to feed Vescovi when he's coming off those pin downs.
I would wager like an additional 15% of those are like ones where he's taken one dribble after a shot.
They don't call Yeah. So we'll see. There you go. Will Warren, always a pleasure. Enjoy the weekend, and I'm excited to see how things progress. And Scara Lee tweet or send you messages as Tennessee goes against Louisiana. Hopefully it's just easy and I can fall asleep on the couch at 10:30 because they're already winning big.
You gotta get that coffee going. Here's a free advertisement for this $3 cup I bought at Sheetz 2 years ago. Go ahead and screenshot this one for the no context Chase Thomas thing. I don't know. I'm kind of old, but really excited about this tournament. I definitely recommend going to my Substack because I'm not good at self promo. I hate doing self promo, but
never trust someone who's good at it though.
Statsbywill.substack.com. I am doing a daily NCAA tournament preview with nuggets in all the games, all the stats info I can find. It's like a mini show me my opponent that I already do for UT, but for every team. And so I think people enjoy that. Try and exploit some matchups you might like. Don't use them for betting purposes. It'll make me feel bad because if I lose you money, I'm going to feel like an idiot. So don't do that. But highly recommend it. A lot of content coming out over the next 3 weeks. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm looking forward to resting in like early April. But until then, it's full throttle.
There you go. Will Warren, always a pleasure. Talk to you next week.
Thanks for having me.